This is a video to show how to look up your proposed tax if this tax advisory commission proposal passes. No one's talking about it, but what happens is they'll eventually pass something in the middle of the night and then say, why didn't you say something? There is no big warning on these things. They do these things in hidden places, and eventually it'll get in the news, but by the time the people wake up, it'll be too late, right? So contact your legislator. The bottom line is that, and your representative, even though they don't represent you, they're just looking for their next job. The bottom line is you want to know how you're affected. And the summary is that South Brooklyn, Staten Island, most of Queens will get a 10% reduction, while North Brooklyn is going to get a 100 to 900% increase in property tax. Then exemptions will come in and try to help owner-occupied, but it's not going to bring them back to the incredibly low value property tax, the incredibly low property taxes that North Brooklyn is already has, right? And this is a tool. Let's just look at de Blasio. It defaults to a few values, but in order to figure out your exemptions, it needs to know your family's adjusted gross income, or the owner's adjusted gross income, and it needs to know if you're a senior and also if you're a primary resident, because you don't qualify for some of these things if you're not a primary resident. So let's go through Bill de Blasio, right? So if you're searching by address, it's best to use this field. You can put in any address. So you can try something like this, because this is going to the New York City API, and it's pretty bad. So, but it knows corner addresses and things like that. So let's do 4442 11th Street, and yeah, it should pop up something in the database. But a nice thing is you can click on that, and then it'll look up that 442 11th Street. But another nice thing about this is it'll give you the borough block and lot, which is the ID of the property right there. But if you want to change it, you can put in don't want that. What it's doing is it's looking up other names for a property. So if you put in there. Now let's try something else. If you see, it found 96 Broadway because that's actually the address of record. So let's click on it in Manhattan and Brooklyn, and let's look at that property. This property happens to be a very valuable property, and it's hard to analyze, and it's tax class 4, which is commercial property. So we're not, this is going to affect commercial property, but the calculator and the exemptions are not meant for commercial property. They're meant for class 1 and class 2. And also, let's do by owner. Now this is highly limited by the Socrata search. So you can only put in one word at a time, because it's highly limited. We're trying to reinvent the search engine, but it gets very expensive. So if anybody wants to help with this project, let me know. So if you search on de Blasio, it probably will find some random de Blasios. This is using Socrata, which is very, very poor. And look at that, it found something Beverly. I don't even see the word de Blasio in there. So I don't know what it did. But this is Socrata at its worst. But let's go back to using the tool, right? So if you refresh the page, it always defaults to de Blasio, our friend de Blasio, right? So let's change his income. Let's put 200,000 in, right? Now his adjusted gross income is 200,000. Let's make him not a senior. He's not a senior. And is he a primary resident? I think he will be if he moves back into his house. His current property tax, you can see, is 6,000, and his new approximate property tax will double to 11,000. So that's typical of Park Slope. It's going to double or more. I can give examples of where it goes up 900% for North Brooklyn. But South Brooklyn, it's going to go down. So if you pick some area in South Brooklyn, Bayridge, Bensonhurst, Gravesend, these people will get a 10% decrease. Queens, Staten Island, I think you guys should be up in arms because you've been paying more for decades, right? And this same law and change will affect North Brooklyn too. It's just that North Brooklyn was built much earlier and had much lower assessed values in 1980. And I've heard that in 1980, Park Slope and especially Bed-Stuy were danger zones, right? You can look at the pictures on the tax map and you can see 1940, beautiful streets, 1980, all burned out. So the assessed values were very low in 1980, and this is when S7000A, look it up in Wikipedia, just type in S7000A Wikipedia or Wiki, and you'll see the history of the growth in property tax and the growth in the law itself. It's nothing to do with race or anything. It has to do with time. And if you go back to 1980, Bay Ridge had higher assessed values, right? Queens had higher assessed values. If you come on the tax roll at this point in time, you're going to have an enormous assessed value because you get fully assessed, right? You get assessed at full value. But these houses that were built in 1890, these brownstones, are not coming on the tax roll right now, right? They were on the tax roll for a long time. It reminds me of hazing in whatever it's called, gangs or... the new guy has to be punished. So that's what happens. But that's where all these 421A exemptions come from. The elephant in the room is the developers know the game and they require the exemptions to build, right? I bike through Williamsburg every day and I see the building before 421A got canceled or paused. They put in 1 billion of those whatever they call them, and they got all their exemptions, and it takes them time to build, and by the time they're done, then they'll resurrect this 421A. And they renamed it to something else, Housing Plus, or whatever, but it's all marketing. It's 421A, and it's billions and billions of your tax dollars going to developers. And in the meantime, they got to get the tax from someone, so they want to get it from North Brooklyn now and give a token. But I don't understand why Bay Ridge, Bensonhurst, the representatives there are completely incapable, it appears, because they're on the exponential growth end of the curve, and they're going to keep getting enormous increases because that's the definition of exponential growth. Exponential growth is a percentage of the current value. So if the current value gets big, the growth gets big. Now, North Brooklyn is on the small side of the exponential growth curve, and that's the way exponential growth works. Take a penny, double it every day, right? In the beginning, it's very small values, 2 cents, 4 cents, 8 cents, right? But take it 64 places. Ask yourself, what is 2 to the 64th? That's an enormous, enormous number. So I'll put a challenge to people. I'll pay you $1 million a day for every place on a chessboard. Or I'll pay you a penny and I'll double it every day for every square on a chessboard. Which would you rather? We'll stop there. Because if you pick $1 million a day, which you say, oh, $1 million, that's a lot, you only have $64 million at the end. But if you take 2 to the 64th, I guess we can ask Google. Okay, Google. Google doesn't work in this place? Okay. Well, I'll leave it at that. You look it up. Ask Google, what is 2 to the 64th? And you'll find it's a big number. Peace out.